everyone, it's Debbie from Korea Now. So today we're here inside our Yeonam News studio with a very special guest. His name is Darcy Paquet. He is an American film critic, an author, a professor, and just an all-around expert in the Korean movie industry. In fact, Mr. Paquet was the official English translator for the film Parasite, or 기생충 by director Bong Joon-ho, which has been dominating the Korean box office in recent weeks. So it's so nice to have you with us, Mr. Paquet. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming in. So as you know, the film Parasite won the Palme d'Or at Cannes Film Festival last month. And one of the reasons that a lot of film critics have been saying that the movie was so well received at Cannes was because it had excellent translations. Now, as the official English translator for that movie, how does that make you feel?
Well, I mean, translating is a job that you usually do very quietly. You usually don't get very much attention for the work you do, and so it's been very unexpected. And I mean, for one thing, I'm glad that kind of the art of translating, the craft of translating is getting some attention in the mainstream media, because I think it's really important. And people sometimes tend to forget about translation issues, but yeah, I don't know how much of a difference it made, but I love this film so much, and I'm so happy that it won the Cannes d'Or.
And did Mr. Bong call you afterwards?
Well, we had a brief exchange.
Of text?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it went really well. Now, in order to be a good translator, especially for movies, I'm sure you can't just get away with doing literal translations. So what are some of the extra things that you do to make sure that the true intended meanings don't get lost in translation?
I know it's really complicated, because the more you think about how to translate individual lines, the more different issues come up and the more things you have to consider. But, especially I think for movies, it's different when you're translating a novel, because basically you replace the novel with a new novel in a different language. But in film, the audience can hear the original Korean. And so even if they don't understand it, they hear the actor's voice, they hear the emotions of the voice go up and down. Yeah, I don't think you can only focus on the meaning, because the audience is experiencing emotionally what the actors are saying. And so to a certain extent, I think you have to match the translation with the performance.
Oh, the body language.
Yeah, and as well as the actual literal meaning of the phrase.
True. In this movie, Parasite, could you tell us maybe some of the weirdest or the most difficult Korean words that you had to translate?
I mean, there were quite a few challenging words, and actually the director and I talked a little bit about it before we started the translation process. He's someone who's very organized, and so we did have some pre-discussions on this, but I mean, one example was just japaguri, which is, it's a word that appeared in Korean. It's made from jabagati and noguri, which are two popular instant noodle dishes in Korea, and combining them together into a new word.
And you translated to ramdong.
Right, which, I mean, basically, I had to choose some instant noodles that were more familiar to an international audience. So I thought ramen, ramyeon, and udon. Yeah.
Oh.
At first, when the word comes up in the dialogue, I don't think that the audience will understand what it means. And they'll be curious what it means. But then a couple scenes later, as this character is preparing the dish, you see the packages of instant noodles. And at that point, we were able to write ramen udon above the noodles. Oh. So at that point, they can put it together and figure out what it means.
I also saw that in this movie, when Seouldae, Seoul National University, came out, you changed the name of the university to Oxford.
Right. This is another issue that it does raise all kinds of questions as you're doing this. The first time I went through the translation, I actually did translate it as Seoul National University. But this was something that we had a discussion with, the director and I. Later in the process, we sat down together with the director and with the producer and other people at CJ to consider these issues. And we decided that because this was a line that it's a very funny line, and it's important to get the humor very quickly, and that an international audience might not know if Seoul National University is
how prestigious it is.
Exactly.
Right.
So we decided to go with a very prestigious university. And then the question was, Harvard or...
I know, you're from the States, so why not Harvard?
Well, we considered it, but it seems sort of like an obvious choice in one way. Oxford seemed more interesting. I think the director likes the UK.
Oh, okay, so it was a little bit of Mr. Bong's opinion in there.
Yeah, that was part of it as well.
And you actually translated almost all of Director Bong Joon-ho's movies into English, everything but Okja, I believe. What's it like working with Bong Joon-ho?
It's really different than with other directors because he's a kind of director, I think, who even before he shoots the film, everything is in his head, down to the smallest detail. And I think he's just so smart that the whole movie is in his head before he even starts. So there wasn't a lot of changing in the middle, but also with the subtitles, he had given it a lot of thought long before we started the translation. And so in some ways it was a big help to be able to talk to him and to get his ideas.
And I saw that you actually translated his first film, Palme. How did you first start working with Bong Joon-ho?
Yeah, in this case, actually the first one was more of a proofreading than a translation. This was very early. It was, his first film in his career. I'd arrived in Korea a few years earlier, and I had a part-time job at the Korean Film Council. And they recommended me as someone to help him with kind of going through the script and making changes. And it was so much fun. We watched the film together and we were laughing at all the jokes, and we had a good time, trying to translate his unique style and wordplay into English.
So you just hit it off from the beginning?
Yeah, I think that he sort of enjoyed working with me. And so, yeah, I've been very lucky. He called me up for his next film.
And it's been, almost 2 decades?
Yeah.
Congratulations. As a film critic yourself, what is it about Bong Joon-ho's films that makes his films stand out?
There are a number of different things, but there's a tremendous energy in his films, for one thing. He's also very good at switching moods within scenes and within the course of the story. With Parasite, you think you're watching one kind of a film, and then it swerves suddenly and becomes a very different kind of film. And that's very difficult to do. I think most directors, if they tried to do this, it would feel very awkward. But he's able to both, change the mood in a very fluid way, and also within one certain scene to have all these conflicting emotions in the scene at the same time. There are lots of moments when there's something funny happens in the film, and then you laugh, but then you feel like that maybe I shouldn't have laughed at that because that was really dark too and kind of disturbing.
So here on our channel, we actually have a lot of subscribers who are from overseas who are super interested in learning the Korean language. As an American native yourself, how long did it take for you to become as fluent as you are today?
It was a long process. I came to Korea for the first time in 1997, so I've been studying the language for a long time. I was picking it up mostly just in everyday life, because when I came to Korea I had a full-time job, and so I wasn't in a language program, like a full-time language program.
Did you speak Korean before you came?
No, I'd learned the alphabet and a few words like Yonghwa.
Yeah, of course.
But I think what gave me a bit of an advantage was that I'd majored in Russian as an undergraduate. And so I had experience studying another language fairly intensively. And coming to Korea, I think your second foreign language is a little bit easier than your first foreign language because your mind is trained a little bit more and you have some strategies that work for memorizing vocabulary and that kind of thing.
Right. Or you might be linguistically talented.
Well, I've always had to work hard.
Now, do you have any tips for those who are super interested in learning the Korean language?
I mean, for me, actually, it helped to combine it together with my hobby of watching films.
Right.
Other people may have other hobbies and they could do this, but for me, I started buying this weekly film magazine, Shini Shibit, Sine 21, back in '97. And at the time, I couldn't really understand anything, but even so, paging through it, like I was able to learn the titles of new films, and I was able to learn a little bit about the actors. And I also started very early going to the theater and watching movies without subtitles, even though I missed 90% of what I was hearing. But slowly I was able to pick up a bit. But I think that's key, that combining it with something that you feel kind of passionate about, and not being too frustrated, because it does take a long time. Usually when you're learning a new language, you don't feel yourself that you're making progress. It feels like you're staying the same. But you just have to not give up and keep trying.
And lastly, is there anything that you'd like to say to our viewers who are interested in the Korean movie industry?
Well, I think that there's a lot of energy in Korean movies, and both kind of within big commercial films and blockbusters and comedies, also within low-budget films or independent films. So there's a tremendous spectrum. I think you can learn a lot about Korea through films. The world that they present is a little bit different sometimes than the real world, but movies are made by people living in Korea, and it expresses their feelings about the country. And so, yeah, I encourage people to see as many different kinds of films as they can. If you read a little bit about Korean cinema, then it helps you to understand how everything fits together, and study a bit of Korean, because even if you just understand a little bit of Korean, I think it's a different experience watching a movie when you can hear them say things like "아이고," little phrases.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Paquet.
Okay, it's been a pleasure.
봉준호 감독님이랑 대화하실 때는 한국어로 대화하세요?
네.
아, 영어로 안 하시고.
아, 진짜요?
궁금해요. 얼마 정도 내가 잘하시는지 모르겠어요.
영어로 한 번도 대화하신 적이 없어요?
어느 정도 잘 아신 것 같아요. 번역할 때 이해하고
네네.
잘 하신 것 같은데.
네, 리스닝.